Thank you, Tricia, and thanks everybody for being on the call. And I want to thank all the other people who are fighting for the same cause of NSF and science funding, who are the experts in this industry and have been fighting on the R&D side for many, many years. But I thank those panelists for being with us on the call. And I also want to thank my colleague, Senator Van Hollen, who is the ranking member on the Appropriations Commerce State Justice budget and has a big passion for NSF. I know he's at a hearing right now asking questions, but when he makes himself available, we'll slot him into the conversation this morning. But we're here today to draw attention to the incredible budget cuts that are being proposed and impacted at NSF today. And I want to thank Arati Prabhakar, former OSTP director, former DARPA director, former NIST director, for being on this call, because I think there's nobody better than Arati with both a private sector and public sector experience to describe the benefits of science investment by the United States. Former director of the National Science Foundation, Frances Córdova, who will also talk about her time under two presidents and why the cornerstone of STEM education is so important in this particular area. Also, Dean Chang, Chief Innovation Officer and Associate Vice President of Innovation and Entrepreneurship for the University of Maryland. I'm sure he's going to tell us about how that science has spun off great advancements in the private sector. I want to thank Marvi Matos Rodriguez, also from the state of Washington, Director of Engineering in Aerospace, talking about that pipeline as well. And Ananth, I'm not going to get the last name right. Sorry about that. Kalyanaraman, who is the director of the School of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science at Washington State University. And we so thank you for your leadership, because WSU is playing a tremendous role in so many scientific efforts at the University of Washington. Well, many of you know that we passed a CHIPS and Science Act several years ago, which was to try to increase the amount of investment that we were making in CHIPS and science in the United States, not only in STEM, in more NSF funding, and also in institutions across the United States that may not be getting as much money, but are establishing themselves and trying to grow their research capabilities. We understand that innovation everywhere, as Ponch used to say, is opportunity everywhere. And that's what we were really trying to unleash, is the fact that R&D in the United States of America could even be more vast than it is today if we help set up places like Spokane, Washington, or Idaho, or parts of Mississippi, parts of Alaska, to do the kind of research that our universities and NSF were leading, that would help us grow more capacity and more innovation. I always think it's interesting that Silicon Valley's model for innovation investment is 1 out of 13 investments are going to hit, but the hit is going to be so big that it's worth figuring out. And at the beginning, you don't know which one of the 13 is going to be the next Netscape or Facebook or any of these other big things that have come out of investments we've made. So we want to make sure that we continue to make investments in NSF, in NIST, and in OSTP. And we want to make sure that the 55% cut to the fiscal year 2026 budget by President Trump is going in the opposite direction of where we need to go. CHIPS and Science was about making that a bigger investment and increase, and convincing our colleagues in tough economic times that we still need to make this investment. But a 55% cut going in the opposite direction is really ridiculous, driven by Russell Vought and his unbelievable naivete about what grows the economy of the future. We are in an information age. We are in an age where there are several areas of U.S. competitiveness that depend on continued science innovation, aerospace being one of those, certainly AI being another, quantum being a third, and all of this is being put into jeopardy by this cut Since January 2025, NSF has terminated 1,530 grants totaling more than $1 billion. And these projects are from a whole variety of fields in a whole variety of impact on that STEM education workforce that we need. So today, we want to draw attention to the fact that NSF helped start, among other things, smart technologies that were used by companies like Qualcomm that ended up capitalizing and being a company of more than 160 billion, or Google that rose from an NSF libraries grant that supported Stanford University students Larry Page, or NSF funding like bladeless LASIK surgery technology. All of this wouldn't happen if we were making drastic cuts at that point in time to NSF. So again, I want to thank the incredible leaders that are on this call to draw attention to how we're going to fight back and tell the American public in the information age, in an information age economy, when so much innovation is available, the last thing you should be doing is having a 55% cut to one of your key science R&D institutions. You should be making increases, allowing 1,000 flowers to bloom across these institutions, across the United States, because you never know where the next Bill Gates or the next Bill Boeing is going to be and the innovation they're going to drive. With that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Prabhakar. Thank you so much, and thank you for your leadership again at OSTP, NSF, and at DARPA. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator. Thanks so much for convening us. And I also want to thank the journalists who are here for covering this critical issue. For 120 days, we have watched senseless and self-defeating cuts to the agencies and the research funding that are the heart of American leadership in the world. And just as you mentioned, Senator, many people know about federally funded research that created the internet, that created Google. These are just two easily understood examples out of thousands and thousands of advances from publicly funded research over years and years. So I'll tell you another story. I want to tell you about a nanoscopic device that's called a FinFET. For 50 years, semiconductors advanced from one generation to the next by making transistors smaller and smaller in just 2 dimensions. But there's a limit to that. And the FinFET was a radical breakthrough that brought a third vertical dimension into play and extended semiconductor scaling for decades. And you may never have heard of FinFETs, but you actually have billions or even trillions of them in your pocket on your phone, running scores of apps all at the same time. FinFETs were commercialized 15 years ago. But many years prior to that, the grain of that idea was funded by NSF and then accelerated by DARPA. And when we point these kinds of examples out, we find they are everywhere in our lives. But the researchers and the institutions that make progress possible are not always visible to the American people, just like it can be hard to see the foundation beneath a skyscraper. So let me tell you a little bit about how that happens. When I ran programs at DARPA, and later when I was the director at DARPA, over and over again, I found that our efforts were building on research and exceptional researchers funded by NSF. My DARPA program managers built on top of NSF-fueled research in material science, in math, in quantum science, in advanced semiconductors, in novel AI technology and algorithms. And that's how we at DARPA delivered breakthrough technologies for national security. So then how does NSF's research come into our lives? Well, I saw the vital link between public and private investment when I was an executive in a couple of technology companies and a venture capitalist. And for sure, the gumption of entrepreneurs mattered and smart private capital mattered. But as we were starting companies with freshly minted PhDs to commercialize their research, as we hired university graduates with the latest technical skills, as we patented products that drew on published research, we were building on a robust foundation of publicly funded R&D. Could my companies have done that on their own without that government-funded R&D? The answer is a flat no. It's been a bedrock economic understanding that corporations invest in the R&D that they can see leading to products and profits, but not in the kind that evolves across many labs over many years and forms a shared foundation for whole industries and for public missions like defense. I have been the corporate CTO and the investor making those choices, and I can tell you that's not where the private dollar goes. These devastating cuts to public R&D are an embarrassing retreat from American leadership that hands the reins to the People's Republic of China. And I would so much rather be here today talking about achieving our great aspirations for longer and healthier lives, and for AI that extends our own human talents, for lowering our cost of living with clean energy, and for restoring nature, because that is the future that America is capable of creating. We've had decades of bipartisan support for the science and technology that would make that future possible. And that's why that consensus must emerge again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Prabhakar. That was so well said, particularly as it relates to our competition with China. Next, we'll hear from Francis Córdova, former director of the NSF.
Hello, I'm just very pleased to be here, and thank you, Senator Cantwell, for sponsoring, organizing this meeting. I came to lead the National Science Foundation through two routes. One as a member of the National Science Board, appointed by President George W. Bush and confirmed by the Senate, and one as chair of the Smithsonian's Board of Regents, on which both Republican and Democrat senators and representatives sit, and they recommended me to President Obama. I served as NSF director for almost 3 years with President Obama and a little more than 3 years with President Trump. During both administrations, I had great colleagues across the science agencies and experienced strong bipartisan support for science and for NSF in particular. I've also held multiple academic leadership positions at several research universities, including 2 as university president or chancellor. All receive funding from NSF for a wide breadth of research. Especially important to universities is the funding to train our STEM workforce pipeline, without which we would have no industries of the future. Industry representatives often tell me that arguably the most important investment NSF makes is in the workforce training of STEM talent. NSF has also funded university interdisciplinary research institutes, which have brought forth many new discoveries and approaches to innovation. Today, I lead an alliance of philanthropic foundations, and I also consult for venture capital. I have a good handle on what industry and philanthropy can contribute. And I can tell you, as important as their contributions are to bolstering our economy, they cannot replace government funding. Industry supports research that furthers its immediate financial objectives with a narrower focus and a shorter timeline. Science philanthropy can be flexible, de-risk technology projects, and partner with public funding. But looking at the numbers, as I and others have done, the total amount of philanthropic funding that goes to fund scientific research and the next generation of scholars is far lower than the proposed cuts to the budgets of federal science agencies. Data from the NSF show that in 2022, the federal government spent about $54 billion at universities and nonprofit research institutions for basic and applied research. And that was down percentage-wise from 75% in the 1950s and 60s to about 50% of total R&D today. But current year science philanthropy spent $17 billion. So you can see the private sector is not going to make up for the shortfall that's been proposed in government funding. Arguably, the most important part of our economic security, our national security, and the relatively high standard of living we enjoy in this country is due to government funding of basic research in the scientific workforce. The result of this funding can be found in every device we hold dear, from GPS and cell phones to medical devices in our hospitals and medical procedures like LASIK surgery, to our transportation on the ground and our satellite technology in space. I want to share with you one vignette from my time at NSF. We had just come up with 10 big ideas that we thought could transform our economy and ensure we led globally. Indeed, implementing these ideas, as we did, anticipated the most recent developments in AI, its integration into the workplace, and its intersection with every discipline. They anticipated the quantum discoveries and uses now being realized in both industry and university. The heads of China's equivalent of NSF and National Academy of Science then visited with me. They wanted to partner on those big ideas. They asked, how is it that you were able to converge on such ideas? Noting that their government would not have permitted ideas to be self-generated from the scientists themselves. For me, it was a telling moment. It reminded us of the freedom we enjoy generating transformative ideas, realizing their development and application, and creating innovations that can change the world. Thank you.
I think I'm next. So
Thank you, Dean. Thank you. Go ahead. I couldn't get unmuted there for a second. Dean Chang, thank you so much. Chief Innovation Officer, University of Maryland.
Thank you, Ranking Member Cantwell, and distinguished colleagues, and shout out to my hometown Senator Van Hollen when he's able to join us at some point. My name is Dean Chang. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer at the University of Maryland. I'm representing not only Maryland, but also the 11 other Mid-Atlantic universities who are equal partners in my $15 million NSF Innovation Hub grant. The NSF Innovation Hub, or I-Core Hub, helps create companies, products, and jobs that bolster our nation's economy and that provide for our citizens' well-being. It's hard to imagine a world without NSF, but this alternate world without NSF would have none of the following: no Medtronic pacemakers or insulin pumps, no ChatGPT, no NVIDIA GPU chips that power ChatGPT, no Apple Siri, no Amazon Alexa, no GE MRIs for medical imaging, no Teslas, and actually no smart cruise control in any car of any kind, no Da Vinci robotic surgical systems, no early quantum computers from IBM and IonQ, and no Fortnite, the video game that swept the nation a few years ago. I can offer many more examples, but these few help illustrate the following 3 points. One, they are all industry leaders that have made outsized contributions to the US economy, both in terms of dollars and jobs created. Two, none of them would exist today if it weren't for the NSF research grants awarded to the 12 Mid-Atlantic I-Core Hub universities in fields of study like 3D rendering, quantum computing, hidden Markov models, nanomaterials, machine learning, and robotics. Three, the gestation period to transform nanomaterials discoveries into Tesla electric vehicles is measured in decades. Same with turning hidden Markov models into Siri and Alexa, and same again with turning magnetic resonance enhancement into MRIs in hospital radiology wings. Therefore, it's far-fetched to believe that industry would have made these same high-risk, very costly investments in research, knowing it would be decades before possibly seeing their first dollar return. But in the NSF equivalents in other countries, they can and will make these kinds of investments. NSF celebrated its 75th anniversary this month, very exciting. But are we willing to relinquish our nation's 75-year head start to other countries so they become the birthplace of the next generation of Teslas and ChatGPTs, the next generation of robotic surgeons and life-saving devices? Not only must NSF continue to invest in high-risk, high-reward research, but NSF also must continue to invest in proven ways to shorten the decades-long gestation periods. NSF has created a national innovation network with 13 innovation hubs, or I-Core hubs, across the country. In the past, critical startup knowledge and networks resided with just a few individuals, and most universities didn't have easy access to those individuals and their connections to funding. That's all changed with I-Core hubs, which formally bring together all the universities, investors, entrepreneurs, and industries in our respective geographic regions to accelerate the transition of laboratory research into new products and solutions. Here in the Mid-Atlantic I-Core hub, this means any researcher from any school in the entire region can instantly connect with anyone across the hub: life science experts and entrepreneurs at Johns Hopkins, UNC, or UPenn, drone or robotics experts and entrepreneurs at Maryland and Carnegie Mellon, or polymer and nanomaterials experts and entrepreneurs at Penn State and NC State. This collaborative acceleration of research innovation is happening at all 13 I-Corps hubs. For example, the Northwest Hub does the same thing for Washington State, Oregon, California, and even far-flung Alaska. By funding both research and I-Corps hubs, NSF has been a critical driver of the U.S. innovation engine for 75 years. Luckily, we haven't had to experience a world without NSF. Let's keep it that way.
Thank you, Dr. Chang. Thank you so much for that elaborative way of explaining how technology transfer works and what role NSF plays in it, but how much it drives the entrepreneurship. Really, really fabulous points about that. And trying to strengthen that ecosystem is exactly what we're trying to do instead of decimating it. Dr. Rodriguez, thank you so much for joining us. Love to hear your thoughts about aviation and science investment.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity to share my story and to discuss the importance of federal investments in science and technology. I'm speaking here in my personal capacity. The views expressed are my own, and I do not necessarily represent the views of my employer. When I started as a freshman at the University of Puerto Rico, I was motivated to study engineering, believing it was a practical way to apply my math skills to contribute meaningfully to society. My passion for research blossomed when peers introduced me to the summer programs specifically designed to develop and enhance research skills. Specifically, I'm referring to the Research Experience for Undergraduates, REUs, funded by the National Science Foundation. At just 19, I embarked on a transformative journey from Puerto Rico to California, where I conducted research at UC Davis and IBM. More importantly, this opportunity opened my eyes to the possibility of pursuing a PhD in engineering. The program walked me through the steps to apply to grad school and what I needed to do to become a scientist. The impacts of the NSF REU program were far-reaching. It instilled in me a passion for research that has defined my career. My journey continued at Carnegie Mellon, where I did my PhD, and my PhD research was supported by a NASA grant. After graduate school, I worked as a postdoctoral fellow at the National Institute of Standards and Technology, funded by a grant from the National Research Council. Little did I know that the product of all that research was not just the science, the discoveries, or the papers. The product was me. Today, I'm building aircraft that connect and protect the world as I align to my mission to serve as many people as possible. The REU program more than 25 years ago was the seed for the STEM professional I am today. At a time when global competitiveness is vital, it is crucial to commit to cultivating generations of STEM professionals. Employment in STEM occupations is projected to grow significantly faster than the average of all occupations, yet many jobs remain unfilled due to a lack of qualified candidates. The NSF plays a crucial role in identifying and addressing these workforce needs through targeted investments in research programs, educational initiatives, and community outreach, ultimately fostering pathways into STEM careers. Federal investments in basic science are not just expenditures, they are strategic allocations with tremendous returns and results. By cultivating a skilled workforce, we are enhancing productivity and driving economic growth that benefits all Americans. These investments equipped our students while positioning the United States as a leader in global research and innovation. Moreover, investments in research should support job creation. While I recognize the growing role of the private sector in research and development, I also acknowledge that the private sector will not pick up the full bill for basic science. Why? It often requires a significant time and resources before yielding products, results, and companies. And companies often focus on initiatives that promise more immediate outcomes. Companies might not be enticed to invest in science or basic science that will not give them a clear and short-term competitive advantage. And to add, smaller firms or startups may lack the financial resources to explore in fundamental science. I cannot stress enough the importance of federal investments in science and technology. These investments are crucial for developing a well-prepared STEM workforce, fostering scientific breakthroughs and innovation, and ultimately they are necessary to drive U.S. economy forward. It is imperative that all voices are heard, not just those coming from the scientific community, but from all corners of this country. By championing science and technology, we are investing in the very future of our nation. Thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez, and thank you for answering the call and matching up on the science level of why we need so many more scientists today. Such a great story. Dr. Kalyanaraman, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your work at WSU.
Yeah, thank you, Senator, for your excellent leadership on this very important issue. I'm really grateful for this opportunity to be here. My name is Ananth Kalyanaraman, and I serve as the director for the USDA NIFA-funded AI Institute on Agricultural AI for Decision Support and Workforce Development. This is an institute we call AgAid for short, and it's led by Washington State University with several other partners across the nation. So WSU is Washington's land-grant university and one of the top R1 universities in agriculture and engineering. So I'm going to provide some perspective on how, if technology and science and engineering can come together to solve some real-world applications in any area like agriculture, what that could mean. So we are very proud to be leading the charge in providing research innovation in AI with practical use-inspired applications like agriculture, like the work we do at the AgAid Institute for the Pacific Northwest agricultural industry. So the AgAid Institute is funded by USDA NIFA and is part of the National AI Research Institutes. That is, I think, a very wonderful example of a partnership between NSF and an organization like USDA. The work we do at the Institute brings more data and science-guided information to agricultural decision-making process, carried out by a broad range of high-value specialty crop farmers that include growers, farm managers, and workers in a state like Washington State. We build tools and workflows and to help mitigate the effects of labor costs and shortages, and to better manage regional resources such as water. We also are preparing the next generation workforce in AI, starting pretty much at the K through 12 level, starting with the American youth, in other words, using programs like the Future Farmers of America that aligns well with the new executive order on advancing AI education for American youth. This work is ushering in a new age of strength for American food producers and helping to ensure that we have secure, resilient, and reliable food systems, because we know food security is also nation's national security. Agricultural cybersecurity is also becoming a very important area for future investment here. WSU researchers are working on cutting-edge security research across the entire computing stack, spanning hardware, software systems, and the web and the applications to precision agriculture. This research integrates AI to enhance the resilience of agricultural systems against cyber threats. We are deeply concerned about the nearly $5 billion in cuts to NSF, which will directly undercut this vital work and also our nation's ability to remain globally competitive. Critically, NSF funding also supports the development of future workforce, and without it, we'll fall behind in our ability to produce the much needed next generation of AI-ready graduates. Impacts of these cuts would go far beyond agricultural AI into areas that universities like WSU are heavily invested in and are really hard at work on an everyday basis, like areas like aquaculture applications, smart health, smart power grid, cybersecurity, and also integration of robotics and other forms of AI into several sectors like the manufacturing sectors and the production fields. These cuts would come at a time when we are seeing an increased investments to advance scientific and the AI research enterprise across our global competitors, in particular China. So thank you again for bringing attention to this really important issue. And thank you for your leadership to my own senator, Maria Cantwell, for drawing attention to this. And institutions like WSU stand ready to do what we do best, which is to advance knowledge and innovation for the good of the society and guided by the profound commitment to addressing the most pressing challenges for our communities. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much. And thank you for being part of this. I know that obviously WSU being a big ag research school was very interested in using AI. You called it water AI. And when we were drilling down on that, you said, yes, the AI can tell you how much water to use on every single acre, thereby saving water, which we know how essential that's becoming for our ag industry. But the fact that you could do the research and tell us on this acre, you only need this much, and on this acre, this much more, and, is a fascinating breakthrough using AI. So we certainly, we want to be leaders in agriculture, and we certainly want the continued partnership with AI and the cybersecurity part, as you mentioned. We are now joined by my great colleague, Senator Chris Van Hollen. I want to thank him for joining us. Thank you for your leadership as ranking member on the Commerce State Justice budget and for your leadership on science investment. But thank you for joining us. And after you, then we'll go to questions.
Terrific. Well, thank you. Thank you to my friend, Senator Cantwell, and thank you, Senator Cantwell, for all your leadership on the Commerce Committee and beyond in the area of making sure the United States is the cutting edge of innovation. And that's what is at risk right now. I also want to thank all the science leaders on this call. A special shout out to Dr. Dean Chang, who I know spoke earlier, University of Maryland's Chief Innovation Officer. Dr. Chang is leading one of many Maryland institutions that are doing really important work for the country with NSF funds. And Maryland has been a leader, but along with many other states across our country. And all of us, all Americans, suffer greatly when scientists don't have the resources needed to do their path-breaking jobs and work. Amazing things have, of course, been done with the NSF grants, and that includes inventing new construction materials, building radio telescopes, promoting STEM education. Those are some of the things we've done in Maryland. And as has been mentioned earlier on this call, I believe, thanks to NSF, we've seen huge important innovations nationally. MRI machines, the internet, Google, and ChatGPT, all of them had their seed corn, right? Their early embers were lit by investments from NSF. And of course, we do this as a country because we want to benefit everybody in the country, families, but also businesses and entrepreneurs. This is a very important public good. And when you take away this public good, the public gets hurt. Everybody gets hurt. They get hurt in terms of less economic opportunity. But of course, we get hurt as a country in terms of losing our strategic position when it comes to technology. But that's what's happened. That's what happens when you terminate these new grants, as well as hundreds of existing grants. I will say also there are many professors and scientists who might also want to join us, but fear from speaking out that they will be further penalized, which just goes to demonstrate further what a dangerous moment we're in when people are afraid to speak out about what is happening. This is a gift to our adversaries. It's a gift to China. And all of us know that it's does great harm, not just to individual opportunity in the United States, but to our collective success. 3/4 of the funding cuts so far, over $750 million, were to STEM education for our kids. And I want to point out that there's a University of Maryland program to help elementary schoolers succeed across cultures and despite their backgrounds. And it's not just for their own good. Again, we need all of our talent engaged in order to be successful. And when we take our foot off of that accelerator, we slow down big time. And we're seeing that because institutions around the country are reducing the number of available graduate and postdoc positions, forcing students and researchers to leave the country and take their talents elsewhere. Here's a math problem for all of us. China has 3 times our population. Do we really think we're going to win this race to discoveries of the future if we're not developing all of our talent? Xi Jinping has repeatedly called science and technology the, quote, main battlefield, unquote, of international competition. That's why China is investing huge amounts of money in every school and every lab. While with this budget, we are unilaterally disarming. In fact, we see the Health Secretary, RFK Jr., firing cancer researchers. Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon, thinks that AI is pronounced A1, and Trump wants to slash NIH. Their skinny budget, which I know you've talked about, proposes that 56% budget cut. What does that amount to in the scheme of things? Well, the total savings from all these cuts is about $5.2 billion. The tax giveaway to billionaires that they're discussing right now in the House of Representatives represents a $4.5 trillion giveaway to very wealthy people and big corporations. So just to do the math here, decimating American science and going after NSF will pay for 0.1% of Trump's true objective, which is that tax plan for the very wealthy. So as Senator Cantwell said, we are going to fight this every step of the way because we understand the important work that NSF contributes to, not just in our states, but for our entire country. And it is really our leadership in this whole area of innovation that is at stake as we speak. So thank you, Senator Cantwell, and thank you to all the scientists who joined us today.
Okay. I think the senator is talking. You have to unmute yourself.
Sorry, thought we were. Thank you, Senator Van Hollen. So appreciate your leadership on Commerce, State Justice, Appropriations. And now, Trish, go ahead with questions.
Okay. The first question we have is from Jeff Mervis from Science Magazine. Go ahead, Jeff. Sophia will unmute you if you want to ask your question, and just let us know who you'd like to ask it to.
Okay, well, I guess this goes to everyone. Yesterday, Michael Kratsios told the National Academy of Sciences that, quote, scientific progress has been stalled, unquote, and that more federal investments in research over the past 4 decades, quote, have not meant more discovery. He also said, quote, DEI initiatives degrade our scientific enterprise. Is he right? And if not, what do you feel you can do about it?
Well, I'm glad to hear that he said that. We obviously, in the CHIPS and Science Act, doubled the amount of money to go to NSF and hugely increased the amount of money for STEM education. Seattle, I represent the most STEM educated workforce in the country, concentration, Seattle, Washington, and we see the benefits of that in attracting and growing new industry. So we're going to try to see if Mr. Kratsios can convince the White House. Obviously, we're going to try a budget amendment process when we get to reconciliation. We're going to continue to emphasize with our colleagues what these draconian cuts look like and try to build a grassroots organization and hope that we will be able to fight back here in Washington as our colleagues understand that the DOGE OMB cuts are really detrimental to economic growth.
I will only add I agree, amen to everything Senator Cantwell said. I will only add that engaging all of our talent and making sure that we look for and find all of those talented people throughout our country not only helps them, it helps our whole country, right? When you have talent that goes undiscovered, then you are hurting the overall success of technological enterprise in the United States and our national security.
Can I just offer really quickly too, the Nobel Prize winner for developing the mRNA vaccine was judged to not be doing any kind of useful research for many years by a lot of her peers. So I don't think any one person can judge the value of research. That's fundamentally what NSF invests in and why industry won't invest in it. And can you imagine a world without that mRNA vaccine? If she just listened to somebody saying, "Boy, nothing's come out of this for a few years now, you should give it up." And that's the whole purpose of NSF.
Okay, next question.
We only have a couple questions, so if folks all want to weigh in, it's up to them. And this is Adithi Ramakrishnan from the Associated Press. You can go ahead.
Hi, thank you, everyone. My question has to do with how the current ecosystem in the US might affect scientists' decision to go abroad for their research in light of some international recruiting efforts that have been announced. I guess, do you guys see that as a possible threat, US scientists leaving and doing their work abroad? And if so, how long might it take for us to see how that would affect science in the US?
Dr. Prabhakar, do you want to take that?
Sure, I'll start and others can chime in. This is a huge issue. I don't think people have really gotten their heads around how massive these cuts are. The actions that have already been taken, as Senator Cantwell described, are huge cuts across existing grants. And then on top of that, with the uncertainty with these tremendous cuts that President Trump has proposed for the next fiscal year, think about the uncertainty that is creating. People have lost their grants, but even those who still have their grants or are thinking about what they're trying to do next year, they're looking at just complete chaos. And when that happens, of course, people will be looking to other places. And every other country around the world, they read the same news we read. They know what's going on here, and they know what a treasure trove we have of amazing researchers. So that is absolutely something we should be concerned about. I will add that the reporting over the last many months has shown one university after another cutting back or even stopping graduate admissions in STEM areas because of this uncertainty. So, if we could turn this around today, it would still be many, many, many years for us to recover from the damage that's happened. And that's why it is so urgent to get on with it right now.
Yeah, I want to add something that everything changed after World War II when European scientists fled Europe and came here and contributed so much to our economy. And Vannevar Bush made his famous statement, and the government started investing in science and scientists. And that changed everything for the United States. And it was, and very quickly, from being not the top country in the world as far as scientific progress, economic progress, it became so. And that's because other scientists came to this country and because we made a federal investment in science. And so we don't want to reverse that engine and having other countries now making that investment and taking our scientists. What the community and the community of philanthropists that I especially work with are most concerned about in all of this budget proposals and cuts is the loss of the next generation of scientists. It's not only the scientists who are now active and may go elsewhere, but it's the young people that may never become scientists because they don't have the REU grant that we heard that Dr. Marvi Matos got. They don't have the inspiration that I got I was in a family of 12 children, no scientists anywhere. And my inspiration was drawn from public television, which, as you know, is also on the chopping block. If it wasn't for that show, for one show, I would not have become a scientist. So we're losing a whole spectrum of generations right now, or we're in danger of losing that.
Next question.
Next, Ben Brody from Punchbowl.
Thanks so much, everyone, from doing it. I wanted to dig into those numbers that you cited, Senator Cantwell and Senator Van Hollen, on the current cuts. It sounds like we have a rough total of the amount of money that's been pulled back from grants, the grants that have been terminated. You talked about, I think, about 1,500, Senator Cantwell, and the proportion of them that were in STEM, Senator Van Hollen. I was just wondering if you had any more color, any more numbers that we could cite as we're writing about these issues.
Well, I think, Ben, to start with, that notion that we as an institution in the CHIPS and Science Act called for a appropriation increase. We authorized in the the authorizing committee, the Commerce Committee, a huge doubling of the NSF budget. This is at a time when we were trying to get two big issues across, well, actually three big issues across. We wanted to say, one, we want to continue a robust investment in basic research. We also had this issue of how can you translate science faster into actual applications, and the bill outlined 10 areas that the United States needed to really accelerate our science prowess and demonstrate our capacity if we wanted to continue to lead in these areas. So this was areas, obviously, of semiconductors, of quantum, of clean energy, aviation. We can get you the whole list. We also said we are at a deficit when it comes to the amount of STEM workforce that we need, and we made a massive increase. I'll get you the exact appropriation number, but again, I think it was more like a doubling of the amount of money going to NSF. So we as appropriators. Now, why? And then the third thing, obviously, was just on the chip science to be the lead in the next generation semiconductors. Now, we had learned through two previous America Competes Acts that the United States had made these, proclamations. This is what it takes to compete. But we had two different economic downturn situations, and we never appropriated the full amount, and thus, gave us a picture that we are further behind. So we are still advocating for a robust doubling of the amount of NSF funding. Okay, let's put that on this table with all our appropriators. I'll let Senator Van Hollen speak to the challenges appropriators have. But you shouldn't be going in reverse. You shouldn't be having a dramatic decrease of 55% in reduction in the amount of NSF funding. You're going in the opposite direction. I'm pretty sure Senator Van Hollen is going to say that, well, Maria, we would have loved to increase to your authorized level, but we had all these challenges and we're still in a very divided Congress on this. But I guarantee you, Senator Van Hollen, there would have been nobody who said, let's take and make a 55% decrease. Nobody would have said that. So this is outrageous. And that even that the White House and DOGE and OMB are proposing it is literally gutting the legs out from under. I mean, we're not in the agrarian age. If we were in the agrarian age, it'd be saying like, let's reduce the number of farmers. Let's reduce the amount of, science on good farm equipment. Let's reduce, all the things that go into making us excel as a agricultural powerhouse. That's what they're doing. They're basically taking all three of these resources and decimating them. And while we, even though we passed CHIPS and Science, got the authorization, the appropriators didn't get us all that we wanted, we weren't done fighting. And I think as we move forward in an information age, more people will, as these scientists outline, get the correlation to job creation that comes from being the leaders in these sectors of innovation. And my guess is this number will go back up, but not, as Dr. Prabhakar says, we decimate it, lose the population, and now you literally lose like a whole generation of scientists. And so that's what the problem too with the proposal. I'm sorry, Chris, for making that such a long answer, but I wanted people to emphasize that the Congress has been trying to fight the larger authorization levels and get there. It's been hard, but I do think it's going to become clearer to people.
Yeah, I agree. And my view aligns with Senator Cantwell's, which is we really need to hit those authorization levels because those represent where we understand we need to be as a country to be competing in this area. But instead, what this budget proposal does is drags us back very quickly. This would take us back to the fiscal year 2000 enacted level. So this is a big U-turn that takes our commitment and investment backwards very quickly. With respect to the question on current awards that have been canceled, our best estimate is that it's over $1 billion that have been canceled. I will point out that some of those are multi-year grants, so they may have been funded in the first year and they're being then cut over years 2 and 3. So it's a little hard to calculate exactly how much money's actually been withheld, but they're on these grants and it's in that range. Right. So 2 bad things happening at once, right? They're freezing current spending, which Senator Cantwell and I have made clear is, I view as illegal impoundment. And then you've got their budget proposal going forward, which is would be a disaster for innovation in America.
I just want to underscore what both senators said and just be really clear. I've been part of American innovation for 4 decades. We have never, since the end of the Second War, we have never seen this level of retreat and destruction. We've not grown as fast as we need to in recent years, but we have always made forward progress. And these are extraordinarily deep and destructive cuts.
Okay, it looks like we have 2 quick follow-ups, and to respect everyone's time, that will be it. So Jeff Mervis, if
Senator
you'd like
Cantwell,
to go ahead.
I apologize. I have to run, but thank you, Senator Cantwell. Thank you all, everybody else for your input today. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Jeff. You're still here?
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Apologies. This year,
Yes.
NSF cut its graduate research fellowship program in half. And the Science Board is even talking about finding private sector support for this flagship program, which has supported 49 Nobel Prize winners. How important is it, do you think, for Congress to restore funding for, possibly even grow that program with federal money rather than trying to get private sector support?
Dr.
I can
Prabhakar
speak.
or yeah, anybody.
I can speak to that at least briefly. The National Science Board had actually been discussing the expansion of the program because of how important it is, and also how instrumental has it been for not just the development of the researchers, but the development of the science, just as you pointed. And the idea has been actually to partner with states in order to fund those honorary mentions. So the program is, so big, basically based on the funded allocation for that program. And it has been a part of the board discussions to actually expand it, not cut it, expand it. These were the historical discussions we have had. And the idea basically was going to be to fund as many honorary mentions as we could through the partnerships, basically not necessarily even private, but through partnerships with different states. And you're absolutely right. To actually reduce that program is it's really worrisome, right? Because we know that program has actually paid dividends over and over. And many board members in the past, people who are no longer at the board, have actually mentioned the need to expand the program. So others to share?
I need to add something to that. Jeff, it's not just about today's honorary awardees. That sure that they're and a lot of philanthropists have asked, can we support them and everything, but the whole infrastructure to identify those, is something that NSF, I saw it close hand, how much time and how many people it took to vet just thousands and thousands of applications and decide who were the winners and now who are the honorables because they don't have enough money for everybody, as you pointed out. And so it's creating a whole ecosystem that identifies, receives proposals, vets them, and so it's not sustainable. Yes, 1,000 today that have already been identified by NSF, we can find funding for, but this is, this is a long-term commitment that we have to make for many, many years to keep funding these graduate students and many more of them, as Marvi has said. And we need the infrastructure to do that. And by the way, since I have the floor, the infrastructure of NSF is also, we talked about STEM education. The infrastructure, you saw what happened, Jeff, to the MRAFC account, the major research funding account. It's just been nothing. It's going nowhere right now. And yet we have 3 big bases in Antarctica that need to be supported. And guess which country, which already has 5 or 6 bases, is going to rush in if we falter on that funding and establish a South Pole identity for their country. I mean, others are just waiting to, that's huge infrastructure project that we have to keep funding, and all the supercomputers and AI related infrastructure, quantum infrastructure. There's so much of that we haven't even touched on here that is also really threatened by these proposed cuts.
I'd like to chime in and add to this. I just think we have to keep a sense of scale in mind here, because when the federal government supports basic research across our country, we are talking about levels of funding that have grown and have been incredibly impactful by growing to many, many, many tens of billions of dollars. When we talk about, I'm so happy when I see philanthropists stepping up to try to help, but there we are talking about millions of dollars at a pop. And we just have to be really clear that there is no simple solution for the scale of this problem. And every time someone's going to put a Band-Aid over a small problem that we're having now with cuts that are happening today, I am grateful for those Band-Aids. But this administration is trying to amputate a limb, and Band-Aids are not going to stop that problem. So we just have to be really clear about the scale of it. And fundamentally, what makes a country a magnificent leader in the world is this level and commitment of investment. And it is a core public responsibility. And so I want all the help we can get from philanthropists, but this is what America really is all about.
Okay, last question is from Aditi, again at the Associated Press.
Hi, thank you all. I'm not sure who'd be best to answer this question, but I had seen that a significant portion of the grants cut at NSF are in the field of STEM education. And I was wondering if someone could talk about, I guess, the importance of research into the field of STEM education and the consequences of not having or having less of that research moving forward in the US.
Well, I can start just quickly. One of the parts of the CHIPS and Science Act panel testimony we had was from the University of Washington. They had an NSF grant to look at why we didn't have more women in STEM. And they found out that we needed more women professors in STEM. Basically, that was the research, what it showed. The University of Washington then changed their engineering program to be run by all women, and they had a huge increase in the number of women engineers. And so that's like a perfect example of the kind of research that we need to do. We also had a witness during our CHIPS and Science effort who was leading a major research institution R&D effort, who then had to step down from that job amidst COVID because they had to become a caregiver. So it also illuminated another element of the challenge in trying to get more women in the STEM fields. But we could say the same thing about, diversity writ large. We could say the same thing. So back to the China example, if we're going to compete against China, then we can't have half the population not participating in whether they want to consider STEM fields. We have to say we need everybody who is interested, who is capable, to step into the fray. And we still need to attract the best and brightest to the United States to do this work. And we don't want to forego that. So if all of a sudden we look like we're retracting, then why is we almost say this isn't the place to do innovation anymore? And so we want, again, benefiting from that ecosystem that Seattle represents today. I can't tell you how many people just say they're just coming to the Northwest. They're saying they're coming to the Northwest because they know we have a workforce. They know we know something about AI and we have cheap electricity. So you always want to keep that ecosystem, growing. And that STEM level is, when you look across the demands from, telecommunications, AI, quantum, all these fields, medicine, you just realize that we are at a deficit. So we have to reach into the system and produce more. We just do. And that's why the cuts to the STEM program are so draconian at a time, when you actually need to be saying that we need to reach a larger population.
Interestingly, these cuts actually might also disproportionately affect different states in the United States. It's important to note that many of these grants go to places like Oklahoma, Alabama, Louisiana, Tennessee. I see this every day, like the way I think about it, and pardon my nerdiness here, but the way I think about this is as an integrated system. And so if you are building a pipeline of people, somebody has to be inspired when they're kids, when they're in middle school. They have to receive a good and high quality education so that they can make it to Purdue and become a propulsion engineer. Right. So it is important for us to understand that those investments don't happen magically when people are in school already and in college already. They need good teachers. They need high quality education. They need teachers who are prepared to teach STEM classes. And so many of these programs from NSF are actually helping those teachers and helping those classrooms, inspiring kids to become later on scientists, mathematicians, engineers. And we need them. We need them. We need them in industry. We need them in academia. It's not just to do research. It's actually to build the products that are manufactured and assembled in this country. So to me, it's an integrated system problem. Do we want to fix it?
I would just say, DT, really quickly, thanks for the question. And if you haven't seen it already, you might look at this Harvard MIT study recently. It was called The Lost Einsteins. It basically said that if you look at all the people who've been awarded patents in this country, children born to the richest 1% of households are 10 times more likely to be inventors on patents than those born in the bottom 50%. And furthermore, they estimated that the innovation economy would be 4 times larger if women, minorities, and children from low-income families became inventors at the same rate as that top 1%. So it's very much tied into what you've already heard in the previous answers. So, but I found that really fascinating.
Yeah, if I could add a very quick point there at the end, I agree with what has already been said, but also a lot of these STEM education programs that we do at land-grant universities like WSU and other states, it goes both into urban and rural America to equal breadth, right? We go all the way to K through 12 level, helping kids understand the value of technology and innovation in an ecosystem that is also conducive for them to really grasp the value of technology and be able to carry it forward. And as you know, there's a lot of migration from the rural communities to the urban territories as we speak. How much of that young talent can be retained in rural America would be something that technology can really help. And that's exactly where I think NSF funding and workforce development really has a very key role to play to help understand the value of technology innovation and the future of America and how that can be dictated in many ways by actually encouraging our current generation kids to take on these really important research problems for the future.
Well, let me just thank everybody for participating today. Thank you to all the panelists and for your work in general, but specifically today for your great contributions of thought here. I also want to thank all the other universities who probably were also attending or listening in. Thank you for all the work that you all do, and certainly want to work with people to amplify this voice. Thank you to the press, and we will continue to let you know what we're doing to try to reverse this and continue to fight here in Congress to illuminate the debate with our colleagues. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.